Hey guys, Camper Dad here today. Today we're going to make one of my family's favorite meals we call shells and tomatoes. I'm excited for this one to make it so that I can go out and eat it while out camping. This one's pretty simple. All it takes is some pasta and canned tomatoes. First we're going to fill our pot with the pasta so that we can get it boiling. And we just like to use pasta that's shaped like shells. We're going to go over and put it on the stove. Fill it with water. Once we have enough water in the pot, we're going to add a little salt to make the pasta just a little bit more flavorful. And get it on the stove now. We're going to let that boil for a few minutes before we put the tomatoes in. I'm excited to get this one going, then we'll put it in the freeze dryer after it's frozen and then take it out camping. We're going to check our pasta. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let me test it. Okay, our pasta is cooked. We're going to drain the water out of it in the sink. Looks like we had a little bit stick to the bottom, but that's okay. We're going to bring the pasta back into the pot so that we can add the tomatoes. My family likes to use a lot of tomatoes that we bottle. But for this one, I'm going to use diced tomatoes that I bought at Costco. So that we can we'll see how many cans it takes to match the amount of pasta we did. A full bag and a half of pasta. So it's going to take quite a few cans of tomatoes to match that. We're at 3. $14.5-ounce cans right now. And we don't do anything other than just dump them in. Let's stir our tomatoes in just a little bit. See how we're doing. See how our ratio is. It's looking pretty good. I think we might need one more can of tomatoes. It'll be 5 cans of diced tomatoes that we put in. I'll put this back over on the stove where you can see it. Now that we're all mixed together. I'm going to turn our stove back on. And we're going to turn it on now, just medium heat. But before we put the lid on, we're going to add some pepper and some butter. I like to pepper liberally. And I love the smell of fresh ground pepper. I'm going to stir that in. I think we need just a little bit more. And the final ingredient in this is about 1/2 tablespoon or so of butter that just kind of melts in, adds just a little bit of flavor to it. We're going to put the lid on and let it stew now for 10 minutes or so. We'll come back and check it. Check on our stew here. Butter is just about melted. We stir it in and it'll melt in there. Stir things up just a little bit. We're going to stew it just a few more minutes. Let's see if we can get some of the juices from the tomatoes to come out. Okay, let's check on our stew. Oh yeah, nice and juicy. I think we are done. This looks great. I think it's lunchtime here. No wonder I'm hungry. I think I'm going to save some for myself for lunch today. Take a little bit out for me. Let's see how it tastes. Yeah, it's hot. Oh, that's good. I love this dish. So what we're going to do now is put it on trays so that we can freeze dry it. Make sure I don't make too much of a mess here. Make sure that we get a good mix of everything to put on our freeze dryer trays. This dish has a lot of water in it, so I don't want to overload it really, really far, or it's going to take a long time to freeze dry. But I think we'll get 4 full trays out of this. There might even be a little bit left over for me to have more for lunch. The key to freeze drying anything is that if you want it to go faster, you make it thin layers. I try and keep it below the top of the tray. The more food you have in there, the more ice it's going to build up. And then it takes longer to do. Yeah, that looks good. And there's a little bit left over, so I can have more for lunch. I'm going to go get some plastic film to put over these. Okay, I've got plastic film to put over so that we don't lose all of our moisture in the freezer. I like the press and seal stuff. It's a lot easier to use. You put this on before you put it in your regular freezer. Obviously you take it off and you put it in your freeze dryer. But this holds in some of the moisture. It doesn't get lost to the freezer walls. That looks great. Now I can put them in the freezer. I'll come back tomorrow and put them in the freeze dryer after they're already frozen. If you put them in correctly, you can stack them without smashing the food. Now they're in the freezer. We'll come back again tomorrow when it's time to put it in the freeze dryer. I'm so excited for this one. I'm gonna eat my lunch now. Okay, we have our shells and tomatoes ready. They've been freezing overnight and the freeze dryer is now ready for them to go in. Okay, we've got the plastic off of them. Now we're going to put them in the freeze dryer. There's nothing magic about which ones you put in at which time. But the thermometer that measures the temperature of the food is on the second shelf. So if you only have 2 shelves or 1 shelf, always make sure that you put food on the second shelf down. All of our food is in. Yes. Start. Good. When I come back tomorrow, they're all going to be done. We'll package it. This is one of my favorite meals for camping. I can't wait to use it in a week or 2 when I go. Okay, we're back with our shells and tomatoes. 2 things happened with these. First of all, I've learned that if the ice inside the freeze dryer starts crawling in onto the trays, then what happens is it starts freeze drying the ice over and over again, and it makes the process go really slow. So at about 40 hours, I think it was 38 hours, I stopped the freeze dryer, put the trays with the shells and tomatoes back in the freezer, defrosted the freeze dryer, got all the ice out, put the shells and tomatoes back in, and it took about 8 hours more to finish drying these. Of those 8 hours, I would say 2 or 3 of them was freezing it back down again. So it made the process finish faster by pulling them out, putting them back in. There's a lot of water in this. It's basically a soup. And I filled the trays. So it would have taken a lot longer in the freeze dryer had I not done that. Secondly, I didn't get to film pulling them out because I had to leave town. So my wife pulled them out for me and she put them in bags. She weighed them beforehand, so I know now everything that has to happen to package these. And I'll show you the formula that has to happen to figure out how much water needs to go back in to reconstitute it to its previous state. But right now you can see I've got these bags of shells and tomatoes waiting to be vacuum packed and put in vacuum sealed bags. I've already labeled all my bags, got them ready, figured out how many I was going to need. I need 65 grams of food per bag, and that's going to end up with 9 ounces of water. You can see that I have marked each bag that way. So I'm going to just start putting the food in. I've got my scale here with the bowl on it so that it's zeroed out with the bowl. If you need to, just zero out your scale. And I'm just going to start putting portions of 65 grams in the bowl. So close, so close. 64. Add another noodle there. That's 65 grams. Since I've already prepared my vacuum seal bags, now I'm ready to just pour it in. And again, I kind of chose the amount visually based on what I know my family would eat or what I might eat in one setting. And that's why I chose 65 grams of the food overall. I'm going to go put this in the vacuum sealer so I can start filling another bag. And while that's sealing, I'll start another one. And I'll show you now here. I've got all of these meals prepared. They're easy to take backpacking. They're easy for my daughter to take to college. All she has to do is add water, one of her favorite dishes. And they're easy just to pull out if you need a quick lunch or a quick meal, just a snack. This is one of our favorites. I'm gonna go try it. And while I'm sleeping out in the cold, probably because it's winter now. We found a good place to camp tonight out here in the desert of Utah. We're just gonna find a space here, put up our tent, And I'm sure glad we got our shells and tomatoes for dinner tonight. Kind of a fun area. Over that ridge you can see the valley where all the houses are. But it's nice and quiet up here. We'll get our camp set up. All right, we've got our camp set up. Now it's time to eat. We brought our shells and tomatoes that we'd packed earlier. Get out our stove. We've got our kettle that we're going to heat our water in. Just sits up there. A bowl for you. A bowl for me. Okay, we'd figured out beforehand that we needed 9 ounces of water per each one of these. So I'll figure out how many 9 ounces is out of this. And we'll heat the first one. That's about 8 ounces. 9. And remember, I overestimated on the water because we always lose some in the process. It's going to be a beautiful night tonight. It's going to be cold though. Probably in the high 20s. It's a good thing we came prepared to be warm. All right, that's really hot. So I'm going to turn the gas off. And pour the water now in my bowl. Stir in everything good. I think there's a little bit of water left. Once I stir it up, then I'm going to put the lid back on, keep the heat in so that the water doesn't evaporate. And now we'll just let it sit for 5 or 6 minutes, then open it up and see what it's like. Okay, I think it's been enough time. Now I'm going to check my dinner here. Oh, that looks really good. That looks just like when I made it. I'm going to taste it here. Oh yeah, that's good. This is why it's one of our family favorites. It's so easy to make. That's good. I'm going to give you a close-up. There it is, rehydrated. And now we have a hot meal that we love.